Good morning, everyone. Hello. I hope you enjoyed last night. I heard that people enjoying the gala dinner and the show. I just need to inform that we are at day 2, and I'm so glad to have all the presenters is already joining with us on this stage. And on my right is Lucia from ACCA, and on my left is Siew from I would easily remember you from IBM, and then Chari ex the CFO of the Achdiat Global, right? I think we will be learning a lot about their sharing views, and I would say that we let ladies speaking first. Sorry, even though I think you're prepared really, and I would let Lucia comes first with the ACCA view about the driver of change for the accountants in the future, and then Ms. Yu will advise us about specifically technology, about blockchains and many others that I think all of us need to be aware of the new technology. A lot of terms, I think you need a bit slowly to explaining Java. And I heard about IBM Watson analytical. This is so interesting to get to know about it. I've read your presentation slides, it's so exciting. And from you also, maybe at the end of the presentations of the two ladies, would like to giving us perspective. Then I would let the floor to you, Lucia. Thank you.
Wassalamualaikum and selamat pagi, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you all today. Thank you very much to the IAI Council, to all members, to my moderator and fellow panelists for being here today. Indeed, it's a pleasure to join you for this Diamond Anniversary Conference, and many congratulations to IAI on this first 60 years, and many more to come. And over this time, IAI has played a very significant role in transforming the role of professional accountants, which is the theme of today, not only in Indonesia, but in ASEAN and globally. And this is how Indonesia continues to grow significantly, due to be over 5% next year, which in today's economy is indeed a very significant achievement to have. And so, as such, Indonesia is absolutely in the eye of every other government, organization around the world. So we look forward to many more transformative years, and I'm very pleased to then be today discussing this transformative role for professional accountants in the digital era. And may I say that after last night's gala dinner, one has to say that the role of professional accountants is absolutely transforming, and that no longer we can say professional accountants are in the back room. They're using fully their creativity, their innovation. So, what I would like to do for the next 10 minutes, it's just to give you a flavor of how ACCA as a global professional body sees the transformation of the role of professional accountants. And as we always do, we base it on industry research, not only with our 200,000 members that we have around the world, but also with a number of C-suite executives. So we go out to industry, to governments, to really understand the role of the professional accountant in the future. And a significant piece of research that we did in 2016 was precisely about that, looking at the future role of the professional accountant. And what we saw is that there were 4 overarching drivers of change for the profession. And I just wanted to touch very briefly on those, because it's those really drivers that then allow us to look into what are the skills, what are the competencies that the professional accountant of the future needs to be equipped to add value and to be a constant driver for organizations and governments around the world. So we asked over 2,000 C-suite professionals, and we had 300 workshops, in-depth workshops. So it's just to demonstrate really the depth that we go in to be able to validate the information that I'll be sharing with you. And of course, the study revealed areas that you are very familiar, that you're part of, such as that global connectivity, the smart machines, and the new media, the social media that we all live in. And these are reshaping the way we operate as people and as organizations, but very strongly also put 4 parameters and 4 drivers of change, as we've called them. An increased regulation and stronger governance, and we were just talking before about how in ASEAN corporate governance is absolutely on the rise, but also may improve, becoming much more important. And globally, it's really that profile of tax transparency and the increase by governments on tax action. And I know that right here in Indonesia, that's very current, that you have at the moment a tax amnesty that is actually taking place. And I think that is very, very relevant in how the world is operating now. But at the same time that you are trying to not over-regulate to ensure that Indonesia remains an easy-to-do business with country, so that foreign investment continue to pour in. So it's absolutely a key balance there. The second driver, absolutely, and this is the theme of today, that we are transformed by technology. And we see how technology could be seen as a threat for accountancy. I'm sure you've seen many of the headlines. 2 million jobs will go from accounting services because of the automation, the transformation that is taking place. But I'll be sharing with you very shortly how actually that is really regenerating itself into jobs that the new generation are actually wanting to be part of. But it throws very interesting challenges for us as a profession, because the cybersecurity, which traditionally would have been dominated by IT professionals, the whole fintech space that still is dominated by IT professionals has to be claimed by the profession, and hopefully that will be a debate that will continue on in how that takes place. That idea of local versus global, that has been with us for a long time, but the profession truly has to be so globalized, using accounting as the business language of the world, so that we can attract the new generations that want to travel the world, that want to use their qualification to be able to be mobile and be global. And how that is really expanding the expectations of the profession itself, where, as I said, the professional accountant is no longer just providing information, and it hasn't now for quite a number of years, but it's ensuring that continue to push the boundaries to be at the forefront of driving organizations' strategy, growth, and dealing with the new challenges. So with those challenges and those drivers of change, what we then looked at is identifying a number of what we have called at ACCA quotients, and this is our skills and competencies. Of course, at the core of it, we have ethics and technical, so professional accountants will continue to need those technical competencies that they've been known for, but they will have to be intrinsically part of a very wide set of skills. And we look at skills such as creativity, and that's not creative accounting, but if I tell you business improvement is much more recognizable within the accounting profession. And actually accounting is one of the most creative professions if you look at in that business improvement concept. But the quotient that I want to just mention very briefly today is the digital quotient. And this is an area that as professional bodies, as professional accountants, we need to continue to develop. As I just mentioned, fintech, it's at the moment very much dominated by IT professionals, and yet when you look at 3 of the 5 main themes of fintech, financial planning, saving and investment, and borrowing, these are absolutely professional accounting territories that we need to be able to claim. okay, my technology is not working as well as I would like it to. And I wanted to mention this. ACCA has done a number of pieces of research to really challenge ourselves, because in that challenge of the rise of the robots, the fact that automation is here, the fact that the automation is happening, should not be a challenge to the profession, should not be a deterrent for either professional accountants think that there's no future, or for future finance leaders, the students of today, to think that accounting as a profession is dead. And I do a lot of work in my role in countries where shared services is a very big part of the economy. And I recently had the opportunity to work with one of the shared service centers in India, and the leader who was leading the transformation for their organization. And the message was, yes, we're transforming, we're automating, we're taking all the transaction out of our organization, and many will lead, but all of the roles within accounting, finance, will actually be evolving into a different role, so that we can provide additional opportunities. And this will go from pure accounting roles, transactional roles, which currently exist and are being done by people, to analyst roles, to risk management roles, to be able to implement these changes. So this is actually very good news for the future generations, because what I want to share in the last 5 minutes with you is that the last piece of research that I would like to share is with the future finance leaders. We ran a survey with almost 20,000 future leaders. So what we call Generation Next, people between the age of 16 to 36. So some haven't entered even the higher education space, and some are and have been maybe in that workplace for less than 10 years. And we asked them about their aspirations for the future. We asked them what they wanted of their profession. And what was very encouraging is that they absolutely embrace, as you would expect. They've been born with technology. So technology is not only not an issue for them to deal with, but when they look at accounting as a profession, they don't see technology, they don't see automation as a challenge. And they do know, and they're very aware, about 60% of them said, yes, we know that a lot of roles will go, but actually, we don't want to do those roles. If I ask you, or would you want any of your children to be a blacksmith? Do you think any of your children know what a blacksmith is? They probably don't. So some of the roles that we are afraid of losing in the accounting profession, your children, your students, your employees do not want to take anymore, and therefore they really welcome the next challenge. And as I'm sure you heard the IFAC president mention yesterday in her speech, the millennials, the next generation, are very excited about the opportunities that they may have, but they want this fast. They don't want to wait like we had 5 or 10 years to take the next step. They don't want to stay within the same organization any more than 1 or 2 years. So we have to really adapt those practices to them, and technology can be the way. They're not interested in security, in jobs for lives. They're much more interested in dynamism. They're much more interested in very flat organizations where they have access to the CEO, where they have access to collaborative work practices, to flexible work practices from day one. And technology can offer this to us as a profession, but also as employers. And this in itself will allow diversity, whether in gender, geographical, of ideas, to also take place much more naturally and rapidly. The last 2 pieces to share is also that the new generations are actually seeing professional accounting as part of their future. They are. About 85% of the 19,000 future leaders that we interviewed said, yes, accounting, finance is definitely part of my future, but maybe not as an ends, but more as a means for my career. So I want to be able to be in leadership positions. I want to be able to have my own organizations. And to do that, I will be part of the finance and accounting profession. So that's fantastic news for us. But we need to really harness that ambition and be able to provide the opportunities to develop, provide access to the right skills so that they can continue to be part of the profession and be the ones who continue to shape it and evolve it. So that's just a demonstration of what I've just mentioned before. And maybe to leave the message with us that employers play, so you have this dual role here as professional accountants, but many of you are employers, are in that position to be looking to harness this new generation, this generation next, digital savviness and zest, so that we can accelerate the adoption of technologies for the betterment of the accounting and finance profession. So the future landscape, and this is what I would like to leave you with, is that we have the opportunity for accountants to absolutely be in the front line of this change, driving it, and at the front line of organizations, so that we can continue to play a huge role in driving economic growth, whether in private or public entities, and that the new generations that you are now hiring are not seeing that as a threat, but an opportunity. So let's harness that and continue to progress this great profession. Thank you very much.
Lucia, excellent presentation. So technology is not a threat, it's an opportunity. Beng, it is your turn. Let's give applause to Beng.
Selamat pagi, Bapak dan Ibu, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Beng Siew. I'm representing CPA Australia, but my full-time job is actually with IBM. So I come from IBM Malaysia, and I'd like to share with you my own personal journey as an accountant, right, from when I studied it and being in a technology company, how I've been involved and engaged with how it's affecting our profession, and what I think, right, we need to do to get ready if we're not already so. So let me talk to you a little bit about myself, right? When I was studying, I think similar to maybe some of you, we were looking at accounting ledger entries, right? It was all in a book, right? We would do our T accounts, our debits and credits, our trial balances, our profit and loss and balance sheet, right? They were all in a book. And towards the end of my study, yes, we're introduced to some software applications, accounting applications, right? But that is a form of technology. And today, right, software application accounting tools is a must to learn in school because they do not expect the young graduates to do T accounts in a book anymore. Right? So that's the start of technology and evolution of the digital era already encroaching into our profession. But did that, threaten us? It only, I think, helped us make things a little bit better. I was not looked at as a bookkeeper, right? I was becoming an accountant. Rather than focusing on data entry, I was focusing on how to analyze transactions and making sure I detect issues, right, and doing the right things. Right? So as I continued to grow in becoming an accountant and learning the various areas, I learned contract review. I start to learn more about higher end work, right? What contract terms and conditions could impact how we recognize revenue and treat transactions in our books. So that is how I've been groomed as an accountant. However, right, a lot of companies have been going through transformation. And similarly in IBM, some of the transformation that we were going through not necessarily were triggered purely by technology, but it was by business, what makes sense, right? Where we put people, because we need to do that to achieve cost effectiveness and efficiencies. So I was also part of this journey of centralizing accounting work into a center, right? So when you then bring and centralize work into a center, you gain efficiencies because the people are doing similar things, they have more knowledge, you may have access directly to your headquarters, understand the guidances that maybe perhaps in the past when it came down was a little bit harder to understand, right? And once you come into this model, there's also with it technology change, right? Do you then just go with the way that you've been working? How do you continue to add value and improve yourself, right? So that is what's happening today. Technology is happening and we in the profession is continuing to use it to see how it can help us, right? Now we're focusing more on analytics, how we can make financial decisions better, okay? So, a little bit. Can everyone put their hands up if you've got a smartphone? If you don't mind. I think even those who are not putting up your hands, I think you do have a smartphone, right? So that is the first form of disruption, right? I don't need to talk about Uber, Airbnb, Grab, and all that, right? But the first form of disruption that's affecting all of us is actually the mobile phone. I remember when it first came up and I had some colleagues of mine looking at it and said, oh, they were getting the latest news, right? And they were telling me, oh, this happened, right? That's happening. I was telling myself, I don't need it, right? It's okay. I'll just keep on with my old phone. But as time passed, I realized I was getting left behind, right? The guys with the smartphone, right, were moving ahead. They then started using things like WhatsApps, right? Yes, social, using Facebook and all that is fine and nice, but I'm very frankly a very private person. I do have a Facebook account, but I'm not active because I'm a private person, right? I don't share too much right, about what's going on every day in my life. But that doesn't mean I should not know how it's used. I should not get involved with it. So now even with this one gadget that practically all of us have, it has actually changed how we work. We've in the past, right, had to rely on the desktop. I talked about software applications helping us as accountants, right? We do things on a laptop, right, on a PC. We are confined and we rely on subject matter experts with their own unique platforms, right? Requesting us to give data and then, we fit into their needs. But in this new world, it is no longer there. It is in your hand whenever you need it. It can be on a laptop, it can be on a desktop. And does it need to be all done through hard copy paper? No. Let me give you an example. For example, in IBM today, our employees, when they want to submit their claims, they can use an app in our system. They can do it via the desktop mode. They can do it on their phone, right? So you apply for the travel, and once, you're linked to Amex, for example, right? When the charges come in, it comes back into my system. Once I finish my trip, right, I will, for those that's not integrated into my system, have hard copy invoices that I can take a photo of on my phone. I can link the photo of the receipt into that same application. I send it to my manager for his review. He looks at it on his phone if he chooses, and he can just approve with a click of a button. Looking, right? Not that he's not looking, but he can look at the actual receipt image online. Of course, in the office, because there are regulatory matters that I need to keep hard copies, right? The back office support actually does that. Okay? So some things that's been done manually in the past can be achieved so easily through the phone today. So that is a major form of disruption. Now, all that data that's been going around in our phones, IBM says about 2.5 exabytes of data is generated every day. I won't pretend to know what 2.5 exabytes mean. I imagine that's tons and tons of data, right? So my CEO, Ginny Rometty, calls data the world's next natural resource. Why? Because of the abundance of it every day being generated by everyone in the world. But like a natural resource, in its own form, without any change or enhancement to it, will it be of value? No, right? It just sits there. It takes up space, right? But if, like natural resource, you mine it, you can use it and add value or derive value from it. Okay? So that's where we are heading, right, with all this data that we have. So from all this data, from human intelligence, how then does it get to the next level of artificial intelligence, right? Are we talking about robots? Are we talking about applications, right? So what drives artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence, or AI, right, it derives its value from data. At the base of it all comes data. The more you input, the more data you give it, the better and more reliance and predictability and accuracy will it give you as a response and output. In IBM, we have IBM Watson, right? We talk about machine learning. It used to be you put something in, garbage out, we used to say, right? So, is it as simple as that? It's becoming more intelligent, where, right, we now say the new electricity or the new form of intelligence, the artificial intelligence, comes from cognition. IBM Watson is about understanding the data that's there, reasoning, creating a hypothesis from all the data that's there, and learning. So once I have a hypothesis created and the outcome was maybe wrong, I learn that, okay, that first hypothesis or result, maybe it's not so great after all. You see? So IBM Watson, for example, what are we talking about? Data today, just to be clear, is not only about text. It is not the fonts that we type into our laptop, into our phones. It is also picture, videos, sound. That is data. And for example, real life story, in the entertainment world, Watson helped a music producer find out what is the most likely beat or sound that customers like to hear, the most popular type of rhythm, and helped created a song in the UK, right, called Not Easy, and it made it to the top 6 in the UK Billboard. So it's about helping the music producer with it. It's about music. It's not about pure text. Okay? So that's why we call it the cognitive world next. Okay? Now, let me share with you a little bit about what IBM internally, right, we're using to actually eat our own cookies, right, with the use of artificial intelligence. Now, it comes in many forms, right? The first, which Lucia also showed in her slide, is the robot. Everyone's very worried about the robot, right? It doesn't need to take a human form, right? But it could basically robotize our work. Now, Lucia also mentioned the millennials, the generation Y, right? Those guys that want to come and work with us, right? I can't say work for us, right, because they can choose to leave anytime, but they're working with us. Now, how do we attract them? Any of you actually encounter your fresh graduate hires today that like to do data entry? Any of you really have graduate hires that you hire in today that like to do data entry? I think no, right? No hands raised because you are struggling. You can't get them to do data entry. So, in IBM, we are now looking at robotic automation, process automation, to help us with repetitive kind of stuff, right? So if you have a journal, for example, a provision for doubtful accounts, right? General provision, where it's based on the total AR, for the month that you've got to use the previous historical factor. It's a repetitive element. It's not subjective. If you can build it into your journal robot, and every month the journal robot will then derive your general provision for doubtful accounts for you. You take away the pain of work that the youngsters don't want to do, and they'll be glad that someone's doing this tedious work for them, so that you and they can focus on the higher value work of analyzing, detecting errors, and doing more productive work. Okay? So that's an example of robotics. Then we have also blockchain. Now, blockchain is a distributed hyperledger. I will share in my next slide a little bit more detail, of it for your reference. But, right, in IBM, we have our global financing organization implementing blockchain, where together with our customers, our partners, right, and the vendors, we use blockchain, and it has helped us reduce disputes. Sometimes AR disputes, it's like, hey, your vendor haven't supplied it yet. I thought they had, right? Yeah, but they did, but it was not accurate. It wasn't what exactly I wanted. So you've got disputes like that, and then do I pay now? Don't I pay now? How much are we talking about? With blockchain, all that dispute level goes away because you're going to have a transparent hyperledger that's not owned by a single party, that everyone has a view of throughout the whole supply chain, right up to payment, and you can then interface it to your existing application software or existing infrastructure, right? It's your front end to help you with the transacting. Okay? So that's what blockchain can do. And cognitive, right? Watson, what can we do it for? We use it for analytics, right? To detect the example I gave just now of expense claims, using your phone, right? Going through, getting your approval. Now, Watson Analytics also can detect whether there are irregularities, so that we can then choose selected transactions and samples, go and audit it, and detect risk areas that may not be so easy to detect because you've got these tons and volumes of data, right? So I'm actually very proud of especially Watson Oncology, right? It's helped a lot of hospitals in ensuring that it provides medical advice, right, to doctors. There's so many journals out there on what's going on, the latest technology, the latest medical research and findings. So, for example, in IBM, again, I talk about oncology because I'm very privileged. As an employee, it was announced that along with Webster Malcolm Sloan, right, actually, the hospital that has partnered with IBM in the US on oncology, any employee can call up, right? None of us want to be in the situation, but should we have that need, we and our extended families can use this service, and within 2 days, if we can fly in there, we can fly in there and meet the doctors who will diagnose and help using Watson, right, to treat us and advise us where possible. So that's the good of technology helping us human beings today that I see. Okay? So, a little bit more about blockchain that I talked about, right? I said it's transparent. What does that mean? Really, from every end of the supply chain or the transaction chain, you can implement it. So from accounts payable, from me sourcing, right, with the vendor, then making and fulfilling the transaction. When I say I fulfilled it, does the other party, agree before I put it in? Then everyone sees that it's been agreed to. Then when it comes to payment, how can you then now not tell me that you will be willing to pay? Because all of us can see clearly when the transactions actually happened, right? So you see some statistics here. The cost of transacting and the efficiencies derived from blockchain that have helped save cost to the company, as well as derive more efficiencies, so that time can be again spent on more value-added work. Okay? Now, do we all, or should we all worry about being taken over by a artificial intelligence, by a robot? That's in a lot of people's mind, right? But I think not. Why? You and I as human beings, we still have that human advantage. You and I will always have the common sense, the empathy, right? The knowledge of, like, our profession, very important, ethics, right? Looking out to say what should be the right thing to do. That won't be in a robot. That will be in us. And that is something that we should leverage in order to ensure that we continue to gain and benefit from all these technology changes, ride with the wave, benefit from it and control it, because ultimately we always will have that advantage. Okay? And lastly, I would like to finish with some key takeaways that basically, as technology have imposed itself on us these many years, we cannot ignore it. If we ignore it, we get left behind. So why not take advantage of it? Why not learn what's going on? Why not take leverage of the opportunity that's there in order to help us do our jobs better? Right? Because the CFOs today, they are looking for more values. How do we then become that trusted business advisor to help them get there, help them with the latest technologies, right? Gain and benefit from more analytics. But let's not forget, ethics is the core of the accounting profession. We then have to use that human advantage, leverage cognitive to go and help us see through all that tremendous amount of data and paper and all that, so that it helps pull out and identify the risk areas for us. We can then focus and attack where it's weakest, right? And then we can become the better and the higher end of intelligence. Okay? Thank you very much. I hope you found that useful.
Thank you very much, Siew, for the very good presentations from you. Kayaknya saya masih ngetes dulu nih presentasinya Beng Siew barusan. Apa yang dimaksud dengan new natural resources? Ada yang bisa jawab di sini? Data. Kemudian ada satu lagi tadi, another one. What is the new electricity in the Beng Siew presentation? AI. Siapa tuh Pak? Dapat hadiah gratis makan siang di Hotel Crown Semarang Pak. Terima kasih Beng Siew. That is very inspiring. The new natural resources, data, the new electricity, artificial intelligence will play a significant role. Okay, last but not least, and I think I left this for Chari. He's really, I would say after I read the presentation material, is really a CFO. And in the presentations, you're gonna, I'm a bit like, this is excellence. He said like, things like a CEO, act like a CFO. Let's give applause for Chari to present his ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Selamat pagi. Morning. I'll probably take the next 15 minutes. I'll finish it faster. I've got a lot of slides. I can stay here for one full day, and I don't want to take a lot of your time. But fundamentally, I think most of the points that I wanted to cover has been covered. But what I will do is to give you a practitioner's perspective. I was a group CFO for Achdiat. I was also in the board of commissioner for Excel in Indonesia for about four and a half years. I was here. And so I'll give you a practitioner's view, okay? So fundamentally, what's happening is this. If I look at the evolution of CFOs or accountants, at one point in time, we were all being counters. Can you count? Can you close the books? Generally, you close the books after about a month and a half, and you've done your job. And subsequently, what has happened is this, that they wanted us to be a business partner. A good business partner is good, so that means that you need to understand the business, you need to sort of give an early warning system, and tell the business that you're doing well, you're not doing well, and all this stuff. And the next stage came in terms of value creation, and all that stuff. The question is, as we move into the 2020s, what is our role? And that's what I'm going to probably attempt to talk about. So enough amount of perceptions about who we are. We always say no and all that stuff. And we've gone far beyond it. You know, these perceptions are wrong, and it's all kind of gone. And today we are considered as a strategist, we are a catalyst, we are an operator, and we are a steward in a way. So I think fundamentally, what the finance people, and I'm about 61 years old, so obviously I'm an old man, and I've been doing this job for a long time. I was also in sales and marketing for 10 years. You know, I rounded myself a little more. So fundamentally, our roles have changed a lot compared to what it was about 20, 25 years back. Now, what I want to spend a little more time is on this agenda number 2, which is the world is changing. The world is changing so rapidly, so rapidly. And the digital businesses are disrupting and I'll give you numerous examples of the industries getting decimated by digital companies. Amazon, you know Toys R Us submitted a Chapter 11 already. And primarily because of, they say it's because of Amazon. Right? And then you got Lazada here in Indonesia, you got Albania here in Indonesia, Amazon is going to come here. And what is going to happen to the brick and mortar companies? That means the traditional businesses, what is going to happen to them? Even hotel, Airbnb. How many of you have used Airbnb? Fantastic. And what is the role of Airbnb in a hotel like this? What would happen to this hotel? Question mark. Now, I was in a conference where somebody came and presented in front of me, and he said, Chari, I used to have about 3 restaurants running in a hotel. And today, I just need 1 because it's for hygiene factor. The other 2 I closed down because people come here, they take the phone, and they know exactly where the restaurants are, and they go. Number 1. Number 2, the other profit pool for them is the limousine services. Today, with Uber and Grab and all that stuff, the limousine services is gone. So the business is kind of shrinking. And it all happens because of digital disruption, right? The Ubers of the world have changed the world substantially. And they have, the only thing that they have is terrific data and capability of managing that data well. And number 2 is a nice single platform that's scalable across the globe overnight. Amazing. Do you know that if my rating is 4.8, they always give me a driver who is either 4.8 or above. That's the power of analytics. Can you imagine? I mean, I can give you examples after examples as to how they use data to drive customer satisfaction, right? So the digital businesses are disrupting wherever you are, whether you're a bank, whether you're an insurance company, whether you're a car manufacturer, it doesn't matter. And you know, after retirement, I'm doing a bunch of consulting work, and I'm now supporting Malaysian airports, for example. The amount of digitalization that needs to be done for airports, huge, you know. You know, in Changi Airport, they've got this little robots walking around, and you can go and ask the question, where is gate number 15? I'm a vegetarian, so where do I have a vegetarian meal? And the Siri or those robots will answer those questions, you know. So digitizing is important, and the digital world is definitely disrupting our business. Now, this is just an example. Came from Accenture. Now, banking industry is getting decimated, right? They are very scared. The banking industry is very scared that the over-the-top players will just take over this business. Clearly, we are seeing that. Now, the only thing that's going well for banking industry is the trust. People trust BCA, for example. They trust CIMB. They trust Maybank. They trust Citibank. They trust HSBC and all that stuff. But fundamentally, that trust will also slowly go away if Apple Pay comes into, if Alipay comes into. That business is kind of decimated. 30 to 40% of their business will be taken away by over-the-top players. I can tell you, even telecommunication companies are coming into the banking field. Retail, we spoke about Amazon. And you know, the business model of Amazon is very different from the normal brick and mortar company. If I am Mata Hari, for example, I need to have about 10 to 15% margin for every time I sell. And for them, you know what they do? Most of the cases, they buy at 100 and sell at 95 to get customer. To them, customers are important. Their business models are very different. And I'll give you the business model of WhatsApp also. It's very interesting in a way. Telecommunication company, the company that I come from, we used to get about 1.5 billion. 1.5 billion. I'm not joking at all. 1.5 billion revenue only on SMS. And today that revenue has become zero because of WhatsApp. How many of you use WhatsApp here? Of course. What a question to ask. How many of you don't use? Probably nobody will raise the hands anyway. Hospitality, we spoke about Marriott and how Airbnb is taking over the business. So the over-the-top players or the digital businesses are disrupting the normal brick-and-mortar company. Banking is essential. Banks are not essential. And people are closing down branches. You know, it is expensive to run branches, and so branches are getting closed. Now, these are just quick examples. You know, I can go on for hours together. But fundamentally, the tomorrow's cars will not come out of Toyota and Honda and BMW and Mercedes-Benz. The tomorrow's cars will probably come out of Apple. Maybe will come out of Microsoft. The number of moving parts in a car has come down from some 2,500 to 17 in Tesla. Right? And what I heard also is that the next generation of people, youngsters, will probably live out of a car rather than living in a house or an apartment. Can you imagine? That's how the world is changing. And which means that if I'm running a company where if I'm the CFO of Toyota, I'll be very worried as to how the business is changing so rapidly because of digitization in a way. Drones are changing the logistics business, right? Substantially changing. The insurance companies will also change. You know, the next generation of people, that means my son and probably the next generation will live for 120 years. Minimum. You know, this is just, you normally have a bell curve where, you know, some of them will live shorter, some of them will live longer and all this stuff, but in general, they will all live for 120 years. You know, I'm supporting a company in Malaysia. It's a semiconductor company. These guys produce a chip. The chip is a DNA sequencing chip. And we supply this to a company in the US called PacBio. So essentially, you take your blood serum, inject it into the chip. And the algorithm tells you that in 10 years' time, you are prone to cancer. You're prone to glaucoma. You're prone to sugar. So predictive capabilities, the Watson that you talked about, are all happening today as we speak. So if somebody tells me that, look, I am likely to be impacted by cancer, I'll behave myself very well today. I'll give you one more example of how technology is changing the world and the insurance company. There's a chip that's being produced today, which you attach it to your loo. And so when you go for your poo in the morning, it quickly analyzes and says that between yesterday and today, your sugar content has gone up. Your fat content has gone up. Which obviously means that yesterday you had a big party. You had too much of pizza. You were drinking too much, or whatever it is. You know, it is on your face every day, which means that you will behave yourself well, and you will probably live for 120 years. And what's going to happen to the insurance company? If there are no accidents in the car, what's going to happen to the insurance premium, So I think a number of examples around how the new technologies are changing our lives. I'll give you one example of Siri also, right? How smart these companies are. When a 3-year-old baby goes to Siri and says, Siri, how far is the moon from here? Siri knows that the child is asking this question and says many millions of miles away. But at the same time, somebody else goes and says, a 15-year-old boy goes and asks a question, how far is moon from here? It says 3.3 million miles or whatever. So the answer gets shifted because of who is asking the question, So I think it is exciting. The world is changing. Bank reconciliations will be done by robot. It won't be done by people anymore. I was working for a large telecommunication company with about 3-4 million postpaid subscribers. Imagine sending the bills and reconciling and all that stuff. It's amazing. It'll all be done by the brick and mortar companies are getting decimated by click and mortar companies. You can see Amazon isn't the only reason why Toys R Us is filing bankruptcy. So primarily it came out of these companies anyway. Now, what is happening is, again, Beng said it very clearly that they use data very well. Right? And I was presenting something very similar in Malaysia last week. And there was a very nice article that came out after my presentation that whether it is Indonesia, Southeast Asia as a whole, probably about 5 to 10% of the companies are ready. The rest of them are not ready to take on this. We don't even realize that our companies are going to go away or get out of business very soon. It's very scary, actually. Those days, IBM, I've been here for 150 years, and all that stuff is probably going to go away. If somebody stays for 150 years, they are very good, actually, extremely good. And we need to keep understanding. We need to probably understand as to where our businesses are, who's disrupting us, can we disrupt ourselves? Those are questions that we need to ask. The business models are changing. Just one example, very quickly. WhatsApp has got 3 billion customers. 3 billion customers. And if they had charged you $1 per annum, not per month, per annum, they'll get 3 billion to their top line. 3 billion will go to the bottom line. And they were debating whether they should charge $1 or not. They went back and said, I won't charge that one because I lose probably 20-30% of my customers. The customers are more valuable, and so I'm just going to not charge. Look at this. So here I am running a telecommunication company with lots of towers all over the place and investing billions of dollars year after year, and these guys are saying, I'll give everything free to you. How can you go and fight? So again, definitely the world is changing, the business models are changing, and we as a finance community will have to probably start changing and looking at things differently. Uber is the world's largest taxi company which owns 0 taxis. Their asset base is 0. I was talking to somebody there. They've got about 7 people or 8 people managing Southeast Asia. That's it. Similarly, Facebook, the world's most popular media owner who owns no content at all. Alibaba, the most valuable retailer, has got no inventory whatsoever. Airbnb, the world's largest accommodation provider, which owns no real estate at all. And look at their ROIC and look at my ROIC. I've got to buy base stations, I've got to buy towers, and I've got to buy billing systems, all that stuff. And I'm not even scalable. I'm just in Indonesia. I'm in Malaysia. I'm in Bangladesh only, right? So I think it's good that we set the stage that the world is changing. And I'll probably I've got a bunch of slides, but I'll probably take 1 or 2 slides and close it maybe, is what is the role of us in the digital era? I think this is the slide which is important for us. Essentially, we are responsible for predicting and shaping the future. We can do this only if we understand technology. So the future of finance professional will not just be understanding the debits and credits that you talked about. Debits and credits will all be done by some system somewhere. But we should be able to sort of assess the risk of an organization. A risk assessment is going to be a fairly significant role of finance professionals moving forward. analytics is going to play a significant role. You know, she talked about, Beng talked about data. Data comes in a structured way, it comes in an unstructured way, it comes outside of your company. So they put all of them together to come out with meaningful data which we can go and take a decision on. And I can tell you most of the finance professionals moving forward will become data scientists. And we are very capable of getting into that space. So if there is one profession which can get into that space well is data scientists. You know, we understand the commercial impact of it. We know the top line. We know the bottom line piece of it. And so I think we need to train our people on data analytics moving forward. The other thing is around radical simplification of business. You know, complex businesses will not survive at all. Right? And I get into a Uber taxi and I get down within 2 seconds. I have an email which says where I started, where I landed, how long it took, and what is the price. Within 2 seconds of you getting out of the car, the bill is there on your system. So it is extremely simple. You go and say, and you try this, and I've tried this many times over, that if the charge is wrong, you just send them a mail to say, look, the charge is wrong. A machine answers, yes, it's been waived. That's it. There's no 25 people sitting there and assessing whether you're right or wrong. They assume, yeah, you're right, go. You know. So radical simplification of business is important. Digitization. And again, this is a huge concept. I can spend a day only on digitization. One quick example. We used to have a call center with 1,500 people, 1,500 people on call centers. So we looked at all the calls that were incoming. We used to get about 1.5 million calls a month. If I look at the 1.5 million calls, there are 5 questions that keeps coming again and again and again and again. So essentially, we converted that into an application, pushed this into a phone, the calls went away. Right? Nobody wants to call a call center, right? But if the answers are available on in a digitized form, nobody's going to call. So from 1,500, the call center dropped down to about 200, and the 200s are more calling out rather than calling in. You know, so digitization is important. Business model, and this is again a major topic of discussion. One good example of business model is somebody like AirAsia. Right, who said that, look, I want to do everything online. Right? At one point in time, even in Malaysia, they said, look, who's going to put a credit card online? And now everyone is ready to go and put their credit card online, and they book their tickets, and they travel. They travel a lot. So thinking about a business model, sticking to a business model, a low-cost carrier running is not easy at all, and they've done very well. And again, analytics plays a significant role in their business. So digitization, analytics, business model, radical simplifications are the 4 topics that I want to really focus on for finance professionals moving forward. So I think with this I will end. I think I've taken some time. I apologize, but it's really exciting moving forward as to what finance professionals can do. And as the moderator said clearly, that the role of a CFO moving forward will be to think like a CEO, but you will still act like a CFO. One question that keeps coming up: hey, what happens to the business controls? What happened to closing our books? What happens to, like, are we going to move away from it? The answer is not. I mean, those are hygiene factors. They expect you to do it. Right? If you don't do it, it's like wearing a tie and a shirt and a pant to your office. It's a hygiene factor. You got to do that. But what is expected of CFOs or finance professionals moving forward is to start thinking about the business model, thinking about analytics, thinking about radical simplification of the business, and digitizing all the activities that we have so that the organization becomes thinner, leaner, meaner, and you can sustain for a much longer period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chari. Someone on the right give number 10. I thought is your score, but actually 10 minutes remaining. But I give you 10. Bapak Ibu, mungkin saya coba ringkas ya langsung dari presentation ini. Mungkin kita tidak punya waktu cukup banyak untuk tanya jawab. Saya allow me to speak in bahasa for the summary, some part maybe in English. First, from Lucia, technology is not a threat; it is an opportunity, and a lot of things accountants can capitalize this opportunity. And from Beng Siew, the new natural resources, which is data. And there is the new electricity, which is artificial intelligence. And these will come, and it's already around us. So there is really a good things for us to start understanding that data will be the one that we need to really acquire, understand it, analyze, so that you can be a successful business winner in this competitive era. And Chari has really, this is really inspiring. Things like a CEO. If you are a CFO, this is a chance to think like a CEO, and there are 7 topics in there. One of that is enhancing performance through analytics, and then business model of through innovations. So we need to keep innovation in this era. And then there are top 10 skills needed at the end of your presentation. Unfortunately, we don't have time for that. One of that is the complex problem solving. If it is simple problem solving, robot can do that. But complex problem solving, it is the one that we can do as a human being. I think we still be differentiated like robots. Okay, I think I will give this over back to the panitia. With that, I would say again, thank you, and let's give last round of applause to all these 3 presenters. Thank you.
Please remain on stage to all of the speakers and the mediator to receive a token of appreciation for today's event. And we'd like to invite to Mr. Professor Siddhartha Utama as the IAI National Council member to join us on stage and to give out the token of appreciation.